And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the first official Supernatural Sunday podcast with Bill here, the Vault Master of the Supernatural, and we have the world famous Mr. Mark Watson, author of Crybaby, the Supernatural King.
Are we live? Are we live though?
You're live.
Are you sure?
Yeah, yeah, it says live up here on my button, and we already have two people in here. We have Miss Lauren, and I'm not
Okay.
sure who. I'm just refreshing my page so I could.
Oh yeah. I'm here. I can see. I can see on my big screen
Okay,
behind my iPad. So we're all right. Yes.
okay. I'm
Okay.
just trying to pull it up on my computer too, so that I could see. Ladies and gentlemen, I see we got three people here. Thank you for joining. We appreciate it. We're going to start this show in a moment. Sometimes I have to. Here it is. Okay. Now I can see everything because now I can see the chat. Let's see. It doesn't show me on this one he's in the chat. So I'm just gonna because I like to acknowledge we have Lauren and me, you. I don't know who the third viewer is, but welcome everybody. Welcome. And today we're gonna talk about a wealth of stuff on the vault. Uh, you know, just allow me a moment. Give me a second here. I'm just gonna alter this. 1 second. There's another subscriber helping get them connected to the show, so I'm going to tell them how to get here. Okay, so here we are, and we have a lot to talk about today, don't we, Mr. Mark?
Yeah. And you're going to tell me about your trip to the world's most haunted prison. Is it prison? Is it the world's most haunted prison? And
Yes.
then we'll talk about any experiences we've had first hand or second hand with haunted houses.
Yes.
So I'm looking forward to it. I've got some great stories to tell you. Some really, really good, scary stories of. I've never seen a ghost myself, and I've been to haunted houses, but I've never experienced a ghost or anything. But I have family who have seen ghosts, and they're very, very adamant, and they're also very normal people. They're very feasible witnesses. You know what I mean? They're not the kind of people you would say, "Oh yeah, she says she's seen a ghost." Of course, she's into all that kind of nonsense. No, these are really very, very sort of serious people who tell me they've seen stuff, and I've actually taken what they told me, and I use it in some of my ghost stories because they're very real.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very real, very serious
Very
people,
real.
people that you would, that you would believe automatically if they told you something. So when they actually say, "Oh yeah, I've seen a ghost," normally you would be like, "Yeah, of course you have," but you're like, "Oh wow, really?" And these guys have seen them, yeah. So
Yeah. And I when it comes to the Eastern State Penitentiary, Drew says he says it's every time crybaby rules.
oh
Put it
okay,
in
yeah,
the
yeah.
chat. Thank you, Drew.
Drew's a big fan. Thanks, Drew.
Yeah,
Drew's
it's
a big
really
fan, yeah.
yes. And I am just about through the book. I read a good portion of it last night. I'm down to the last, I'd say, 30 pages. And
Okay.
no, I don't want to piggyback on that, but I just want to say I was so shocked. No, I shouldn't say I'm shocked to be evil, but what Rahul did to his gang, how he just wiped them out like they were some evil bug. And then, but he's the brunt of evil. And then he threatens Raj, which he still has other people that could follow it. This book is something, Mark. It's something. But anyway,
Yeah, I'm glad you like it. I'm waiting for it to get 20 reviews, and then I'm going to start marketing it on Amazon. I'm going to start running category ads But until it's
Yeah.
got 20 reviews, I'm just gonna wait for the time being. It's got a brand new cover as well, and I'm nearly ready
Uh,
to publish. I'm nearly ready to publish 100 creepypasta stories. I think I've done 93, so I've got 7 more to go, and then that'll be the next book. 100. It'll be called Homemade Creepypasta: The First 100 Stories, and they're stories people have submitted to me um, through Substack, through the Homemade Creepypasta Substack, and I've then edited them and made them into a short story, and that's nearly ready to go as well. So, yeah, very
oh,
good. So,
beautiful.
Drew, I have been really
I
enjoying
want
that.
to share real quick
Go on.
with our viewers and with you. I think I mentioned, and I just put it in the chat there, but I'm in this 90-day challenge for a novella. And what I learned is that, yes, amongst my other things, I'm not going to be doing much writing today. I think I told you I'm moving slow. I didn't sleep well, and the gremlins are really working my nerves. They tinkered with one of my monitors here. So, but what I learned in my 90-day challenge is that website that I posted in the chat is a
Mhm.
great site if you're looking for somewhere to get book covers, very cheap too. Because I'm not good with the arts and stuff. Like I just glimpsed at it and I just wanted to share it with you and our community here. They're like between $15 and $20 or something. A lot of people talked about them, so give them a check and see what you think. But yeah, let's talk about my experience at Eastern State. Oh, oh, you used 100 covers? Okay. Is that a good one too?
That's for $100. You pay $100 and they make you a cover.
Oh, wow. That's not bad.
It's not
Um,
bad. And I use Atticus to format my books, and through Atticus, I got a 50% discount with 100 covers.
I feel like Atticus I was using, but now I use Novel Crafter.
Okay.
You've heard of that one, right?
Yeah. I,
Yeah,
I,
I like
I'm
that. Because a good friend of mine, Janice Lamb, I don't know if she's with us today, but she's also a member of the Vault and she's very active here. She got me in tune with them. Someday we'll have her on the Vault to talk about her path with fantasy writing and all, because she gives some really great advice. But without further ado, to talk about my experience at the Eastern State Penitentiary, I will say when you walk through that place, you just feel like there's darkness there. There's evil there. And friends, I wrote a post about it on my Substack. You can look through the post. It is on there from the Eastern State Penitentiary. There has been so much torture that has gone in that place, to the prisoners. The guards were just evil. They would take people and I'm trying to think, they would dock them in this big water bucket in the middle of the winter. And then in Philadelphia, because I know I grew up in Philadelphia, that's where the penitentiary is. Our winters get really, really cold, like 20 degrees, 15 degrees. It could get better. They would hang those prisoners on the wall after dunking them in all that water, and they would freeze to death. They would die from frost. So it was like extreme torture. There was
you
another
pay a lot of
chair.
money. You pay a lot of money now for these kind of treatments.
What's that?
It's a big. You pay a lot of money now for this treatment. This dunking you in water thing. It's all the rage, jumping into a freezing cold lake and what have you. With
I know there's
yeah,
people can actually do that for a living. I mean, not a living, but a thing. Back in Philadelphia, I forget what they're called, and I don't even know if they do it. I'm sure they do. They're a group, and they go in the icy cold Atlantic Ocean every November. I can't think of what they're called, but I know who you're talking about. I know, but back then, and I think that is torturous what they did at the penitentiary. Other things that occurred is there was a torture chair that they would kind of tie them up so that if they moved any kind of way, their tongue they would bite through their tongues. It just was read the article, folks. A lot of torture that went on. So, with that being said, spirits are going to be trapped in there. There's going to be all kinds of supernatural activity going on in there, and I can say that I had something personally, although I felt like something came back with me. My partner has experienced many supernatural things when we were in there. He saw different apparitions like shadows and
Do you never feel that you're on the edge, Bill? Do you never feel that like maybe you're very close to seeing things, but you're just not quite as attuned as others? Like if you were slightly more attuned, you would have very, very, very vivid experiences. Like you can feel the atmosphere, but you just can't quite make that connection. You're not that kind of you don't have that kind of gift where you can just say, oh, okay, I can see what's happening. You can feel it, but you can't quite take the next step, where you can actually see what's causing the atmosphere, kind of thing.
I
I think
agree with
some
that.
people have that kind of gift. I don't, but I have been to places where I've felt the atmosphere and I've thought, wow, if I were any more attuned, I'd probably be seeing all kinds of crazy stuff going on. Thank goodness I'm not. You know what I mean? That would be, a little bit too much for me. Yeah.
Um, I
Can I ask you, Bill? Can you tell me a little bit about the history of this penitentiary? Because how old is it? Is it very old?
uh
Is it a new prison or?
no, it's very old. It was built back. And I'm guessing I'm not looking at my notes. But from what I remember, I want to say it was built in the 1800s, I believe. It was supposed to be a prison that was built for it's supposed to be a model prison. The whole concept of the prison was a new concept that they were trying to all prisons across the country at the time in the United States, where they were keeping prisoners isolated. Like each prisoner was like in their little cell. They didn't like they didn't do it like it is now. You know what I mean? With so many, and it was a new thing. And what happened is a lot of people were going mad because there was extreme isolation. There was the torture, and I'm just skimming some of the ones that I remember. Uh, Al Capone, you know who Al Capone is. He was a famous evil mobster. He stayed in there and even he had reports of seeing things. And there's been reports since he's passed that his spirit haunts that place too, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't die there. He stayed there. I want to say it was a few months, maybe a couple years, somewhere in that range. And then he was released, but he saw a lot of crap in there too. There's definitely something in there. There's a lot of documented evidence of people, um, seeing things, paranormal investigators, supernatural ghost hunters. We'll have to get one of them maybe someday here on the podcast to tell us their intake on it because there's quite a few that talk about it and that have experienced things in there. And I was there. I think I went through there. I'm going to say once, twice, maybe two, three times. Once was for they have a thing every Halloween called Terror Behind the Walls, and people go in there and dress up as characters and jump out and scare you. And the
Hmm.
place itself is enough. They don't really need the characters. You know what I'm saying? But they do that on top of it, and then, else oh, I went there for a day trip, and there's still dark heaviness that it's just, the torch that went on in there, It's just scary, and I have to say that, yeah, I feel it, but I'm at that level, I think because it probably is like what you're saying, it'd be too much for me to handle. There are some days when I'm sitting in here writing my stories of for the vault and my own fiction and all, that I feel things are around me, if that makes sense. And I'm sure that's the imagination. Uh, the other day when I was writing in here, I felt something like I don't say feel. Let me take the word back. I saw something. Hey,
Hmm.
Chelsea, that's a good friend of mine from work. That's Miss Chelsea from Louisiana. Hello, Chelsea. Welcome to Vault of the Supernatural, the first Supernatural Sunday podcast. Thank you for coming and joining in on the action. So yeah,
Hello,
I
Chelsea.
yeah, she's a great lady. She is the mastermind behind Discover. She's an intelligent woman. I work with her at Discover on her personal loan team, and she's just an awesome lady and resource. So we've become very good friends. And but to talk about what I experienced the other day when I was in my office, like I was writing this story. I don't know if I need to get my emails too, but I wrote a post the other day about this haunted playground. Did you see that one I talked about?
Yeah,
Well, it was when I was writing that. That story just feels so real, you
yeah,
know. And it's here in Mesa, Arizona, and it's on the Volts list of places where we want to get and see because we want to actually go through some of these. There's quite a few haunted places here in Phoenix that we're going to do some lives on. Hopefully, I just have to find brave souls to go with me. He's no Bill's not doing it by himself. No, no, no. I'm taking a few brave souls with me, but the playground is so open where that happened to that girl.
mhm.
It's dark at night when these things happen at anywhere between 11:30 and midnight. Chelsea, did you read that story that I wrote the other day? I'm just curious about the one at Playground, Jefferson Park. You could say yes or no if you could, or if any of you are subscribers, you could let me know. Um, but yeah, that there's so many people that have seen that girl's body or spirit floating along the sidewalk.
Okay.
Check it out, girl. It's a really good story along with the reveal, but that one is a good one too because I try to put those out too to give our supernatural writing friends other ideas for their stories because, like you say, um, these give ideas for future stories. You know what I mean? You could take it and twist it to what you want it to be for your particular story.
You know, I just had an idea when you were talking about going through the penitentiary, and they have like a Halloween special, and there's characters dressed as the ghosts waiting to jump out at you. I always wonder if they actually have a supernatural experience while they're waiting. They're waiting in the dark, dressed as like somebody who's supposed to haunt this place. They must be there for a little bit of time in advance before you guys get to them. They must be absolutely crapping themselves. I know I would. I know if I was dressed as a ghost in a sort of haunted penitentiary, that's famous for being filled with ghosts, and you have to sort of get there half an hour before, get your costume on, everything else like that. Okay, get ready, get in the zone. Like you say when you write your stories. I'm the same. When I write my stories, I kind of scare myself. You know what I mean? You're in the zone of kind of, okay, I'm gonna do this is a ghost story and everything else like that. This is about a demon or something like that, and then you're like, whoa, what was that? You know what I mean? It's like because you're in that,
Yeah.
because you've put yourself in that kind of frame of mind where you think, you're because you're thinking about these things. Like I've done ones before where I've gone to bed and I always like to think about my stories when I'm in bed. I like to think about what I'm going to put in the next chapter. Sometimes you get the whole chapter, you know what I mean? Or sometimes you get
Mhm.
like a little bit of dialogue that you think, okay, that's great, and then you can get up out of bed and write it, or you can stay there. I remember I've done that. I've done that where I've been so scared. I've been like, okay, right, I'm not gonna look. I'm not gonna pull the covers down. You know what I mean? I'm in the zone, and I've thought of something really scary, and it's freaked me out. You know what I mean? I'm not going to pull the covers down. I'm going to
And
just going
that
to go back to sleep nice and slowly.
That, my
So
friend, is the sign of a good story when it haunts you. As we say here at the Vault, I say that all the time. That if the story scares you, then guess what? That's good, some damn good right.
yeah,
That's damn good right. I agree. I'm still working to get to that level, but I have written stories, that have scared me. And like I said, when I was writing that one about the bar, I could have sworn something dark just was like right here where I'm at now, where I'm sitting now, just was like this.
a
Wait a minute,
presence,
what is
sort of.
that? You know?
Yeah,
And I thought, nah, that's just my imagination. But Carlos, my partner, swears that there's things in here. He always says that at every place, but he thinks there's things here. I don't know. I haven't seen it. I've had the place blessed by the priest before we moved in here. Because I think you might have seen in a few of my stories, and I know I spoke to Chelsea about it, but we did live with a gremlin before we came here.
okay,
Her name was a Gerace, and
okay.
Yeah, and she, no, she was a real person, but she had many demonic ways about her. And then we really did when we were struggling with rent here a couple years back. Uh, I put a post out for on Craigslist to try to get a roommate. Uh, my sister had moved; she was with us for a while. I thought, okay, well, we'll try to get somebody to help with the rent. Worst mistake. He worshipped the devil. He worshipped the devil. Uh, on Halloween, he
Wow.
told me, Hail Satan." I said, "Hey, we yeah, I like the scary stuff, but that's where I draw the line. We ain't don't bring that in this place, you know?" And then we finally put him out because he got very violent and evil. He would go out, like, at weird hours of the night, like midnight, to a park saying he was doing Pokemon. Who the hell does that at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning? He doing that. Come
Okay.
to find out, oops, sorry, phone fell. Come to find out, after I put him out, we both put him out, we found that he had, pentagons and all the same uh, okay, Chelsea, um, all the satanic stuff of
Okay.
you know, uh, devil worshiping. That's why I said, I got to call a priest because he was, and then the one that came after, she was just as bad. I felt that apartment in particular where we were, that had a lot of dark energy in it. That's why we moved here. Um, and there were rumors, what people would say, or because it's by a highway, there was a lot of deaths from, accidents. I don't know. I mean, I didn't experience anything per se, but there sure was a lot of bad stuff that happened while we lived there. And I can,
Did you talk to the priest when he came? Because priests, this is what I was gonna talk to you about later. Priests have loads of fantastic stories because they're always getting called out to do these not quite exorcisms, but haunted houses. They always get
yeah,
called out to haunted houses and things like that. And if you make
yes,
the priest a cup of coffee, they'll tell you fantastic stories, you know?
yes, yes. I think that will be a good one, to get from a priest when we meet with him again, or if I have him come out again to get some ideas, because they have a wealth of stories. That's the truth, you
I,
know?
I this is what I was going to say because I grew up in a Catholic family, and we were one of those Catholic families where the priest was always over for tea. I mean, I was an altar boy when I was a kid, and the priest was, were good friends with my mum and dad, so he used to come over for tea every Sunday. Did the priest, and we used to quiz him about like, have you seen a ghost? Have you done this? Have you ever done to do an exorcism?
Let's get the
Tell us
call.
about
Let's
haunted
get the going.
houses and everything else. And so all the stories I'm going to tell tonight have come from our local Catholic priest.
Oh my god, that's funny. Yeah, I can
Yeah,
imagine because they know and see a lot. I'm Catholic too, so I know. We've had the priest in our home, not just this house, many houses through the years, and he was right up front. He said, "If you see or sense anything, let me know. I'll be right back, and we'll do what we got to do." So they must be used to this, you know. And
yeah,
even that you just said that, which is true, you know. Priests are very, very exposed to that.
yep.
Go back to the Eastern State Penitentiary.
Uh-huh.
I did, because I don't know, I don't think I don't know, I might have mentioned it in one of my posts, and I don't know if I told you, but if I didn't, I'm gonna say it now. I used to work in haunted houses. I used to be one of those people that would dress up. I was Dracula, I was a ghoul, I was a goblin, I had my head chopped off, I was the one that worked down in the dungeon. I love that kinda stuff, and the place I worked at burned down many years ago. It was a haunted house in New Jersey.
Uh-huh.
It was called Castle Dracula. But I wanted to work in the haunted house attraction that they had at that penitentiary.
Uh-huh.
And I'm gonna start it, but then they had some weird requests, want me to shave all my hair, and I thought, no, I'm not going through that because I don't want to be looking like that, you know. But um, and to talk about that, when I worked in that haunted house, the one that I'm telling you about, people would say, I never, again, I think it's because my mind can't accept that kind of stuff. Like you're saying, I could write the stuff, like the spooky stuff, but my mind won't cross over to where I can experience it, is what I'm saying. Because I
Mhm.
think I'm wired that if I see that, I'll be freaked out, forever. Thank goodness, because then I would never be able to write, and I enjoy
Yeah, I
writing.
don't wanna I
So,
don't wanna see a ghost.
yeah, so people in that haunted house swear that was ghosts and all going on in there. In fact, it was rumored, and I never really researched it to find it out, but the castle, the Castle Dracula, and where the dungeon boat ride was, which was below the castle, that I think definitely something was that place was eerie. But um, there was a rumor that many, 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 many years ago, before the castle was even built, that it was it was an amusement park with a merry-go-round,
Okay.
and the kids died in a fire, and no one survived. And a lot of people say they see the spirits of children, which I'm not contesting any of that. If people say they see that kind of stuff, like what I write in my articles when I do these uh true supernatural stories, if there's several people saying that they've experienced this, like with that playground, several people have said they seen that girl or sensed and saw her floating along the sidewalk, there has to be truth to that, don't you think? There has to be truth to that, because there's more to this life than this here. There is another realm, and I do think some people get stuck. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, I also think, uh, depending where your mind is at the time in life, that sometimes you're more open to do things or try things. One of those, I lost my grandmother, was very, very close to her, and I went to the mediums to see if she could communicate to me or from the other side. And I even went to that. Do you remember John Edwards from Crossing Over? I think he's just here in the United States, but folks here that are from the USA, I'm sure you all know who he was. He was a world, I don't know if he's world famous, but he was famous here in the United States. I think he kind of still is, but he was a medium. And when
Okay.
he did one of his shows, the audiences were packed to the hill, you know? And
Uh-huh.
he would communicate, or if the spirits came to him, he would communicate to someone in the audience if their family member was there. And I went to him to see if I could communicate with my grandmother. Never happened. So then I turned to Ouija boards,
Okay.
which I don't ever recommend. Don't ever touch. Don't touch it alone. Don't touch it with a person. Just don't touch. Leave it alone. If you have one, burn it. Do whatever. I've had so many bad experiences. Well, one in particular that we discussed that I'm going to mention. Um, the other ones, I don't know if they were experiences, but I was lucky nothing happened because you really shouldn't use one alone. But there is one experience. I was using the Ouija board, or I was having friends over. I was down the shore for the summer. These friends were in the front house. They rented the front house. I rented the back house. I said, "Oh, let's come over. Let's have beer and pizza and, yada, yada." "Oh, yeah, let's go. And they were from Brazil, very nice family. And so we had beer and pizza and food, and I had the Ouija board out. I said, "Oh, let's use the Ouija board, see what it's like and see if we can communicate with someone." You know how you are when you're young, you do those foolish little things. And so that being said, we were trying to communicate, and my friend's eyes and everything changed. Like something jumped into her. Her
Uh-huh.
head started to turn around.
No way.
Okay. Yeah, yes, way. It was never anything I had ever seen. It was like something from The Exorcist, okay? And then her eyes changed, the color, okay?
Okay.
And I was horrified. In fact, this was welcome, welcome, Lavanya. Welcome to Supernatural Podcast Sunday. Um, but I was horrified because then her nails started to dig into the wood of the table. and she started to talk another language. I thought, well, maybe she's from Brazil, maybe that's her native tongue, you know? And her daughter said, "No, Bill, that was not her native tongue. A spirit jumped into her because Marcia, the woman I'm talking about, had the gift of tongue. She had the gift to communicate. She was sort of like a medium in a sense. So spirits would channel through her. And because we had alcohol and we had the Ouija board, it attracted bad spirit. Luckily, it didn't
Okay.
do much harm and it jumped back out of her. But my point is, she, I never seen anything like that. I tell you one thing, I didn't sleep for 3 days, 3 nights. 3 days, 3 nights. I was horrified. I never touched it that rest of that summer, you know?
Mhm.
It was horrible because when her eyes changed color and her head turned around, and I ain't just saying this, it really is the truth. I had never seen anything like that in my entire life. Mhm. That, my friend, is a story in itself, you know?
Yeah.
Um, but let's ask the audience, have any of you guys had, any supernatural experiences or, uh, interactions with the other realm, the other side, as they like to say? That's the closest I came, thank goodness. I'm so glad because if it would have been worse than that, I probably wouldn't be writing this stuff today if it was worse than that, you know? That was pretty
Yeah.
bad for me not to sleep 3 days, 3 nights. But I know you had some stories you wanna share too. I'd love to hear those.
Do you think that writing it might open the door? Might sort of, when you write stuff like we're doing now. I mean, I came to ghost stories, horror stories quite late because I used to write children's books. But then when my little boy grew up, I was like, right, now I'm going to write what I want. I'm going to write horror stories because I always liked Stephen King books and things like that.
Me too.
So I always wanted to write my own horror stories. But I'm starting to think now that once you get into that mindset, maybe then, yeah, that door that hasn't yet opened might open. I mean, like you say, I don't want to see I don't want to see a ghost. I'm quite happy not to. You know what I mean? I think it would
Me
mess with
too.
my worldview.
Yeah, me too.
At an absolute minimum, I think it would mess with my worldview. But like I used to, yeah, like I used to say, we used to the priest used to come over on Sundays, and we used to make him dinner, and he would stay for dinner at the house. And then me and my sister, we would quiz him. We'd say, "Have you seen any ghosts this week, Father? How do you have, because a priest, you always think that he's going to have some kind of connection with the afterlife, isn't it? He must have some fundamental belief in that to do what he does." And he used to say, "Yeah, like where I lived in a small town in northern England, we used to have the ghosts of, let's say, the stately home. You know what I mean? The ghosts of the sort of local hall. But then most of the ghosts and most of the experiences that the priest would tell us about were in normal houses, family houses, council houses, so houses, that were kind of the poor, houses in the middle of nowhere, this kind of thing." And he used to say, yeah, like he told us one story about a woman who was having a family. It was a husband and a wife, and they just bought a house, and they were having lots of ghostly experiences in the house. Like, for example, the girl, when the husband was working nights. The girl would be
Um,
reading in bed, and she would be sat up in bed reading, and one side of the bed would go down like somebody was sitting on it. You know, when someone sits on the bed and
yeah.
the bed goes down, she would literally feel the weight of someone's sitting, and the bed would go down in a shape as someone sitting on the end of her bed while she was reading books. So like, wow, that's proper scary. And then what would happen is when they were walking down the stairs in the house, they would walk down the stairs, and there was a part on the stairs that they couldn't pass. They couldn't go through it. They had to walk around it It was like something was blocking them on the stairs, and they had to go around it. And that's when, when she said that, she mentioned that the priest actually told her, okay, the person who lived there before you was a guy, and he hung himself from the stairs. He hung himself, and that's why they had that block that they couldn't get round on the stairs. And
Yeah,
it was
and
his spirit that would would would
uh,
sit on the end of the bed while she was reading and everything. And so, I thought that's wow, that's a good scary one. I can't think of anything scarier than reading in
no,
bed
but
and one bit of the bed goes down. I would be like, I would be out of there in a shot, whether I'm dressed or not. I'm out of there. You know what I mean? If something like that happens, wow.
and as you're talking, I was thinking of something too. I have a cat, and animals can sense the supernatural more than we can because I
Yeah.
feel they are in tune. Not so much here, but I feel at the other place, the one I told
Hmm.
you, but Skittles would always, that's our cat's name, would always run around or look up, like me out. Well, he does a little bit here, but I think it's because he's sick. But he would look in certain corners. Seemed like it was look as if something was there trying
Yeah.
to connect with. I don't know. It was a very weird and strange experience, but I know that place had dark energy.
Yeah.
And I also know that when we were looking for places to live a few years back, um, thinking about what you were saying about that story, one of the places that we looked at, the girl said, "Oh, it was a cheaper price, for the rent." And she said, "But you know why? Because someone was murdered in here." I said, "Hell no, I am not staying in this apartment. There's no
Yeah.
way." Could you imagine the supernatural activity that must occur in there?
Yeah.
I'm sure something occurs in there. If someone's I believe in that if we're taken from this life before our intended time, or if we are taking from this life um, with unfinished business or whatever it is, we're going to stay glued to that area. It's been documented.
And in that pain, maybe you're always feeling that sort of pain. Maybe you're kind of in that exact moment, you're kind of frozen and you don't want to cross over because of
Yes,
the shock. That's exactly what I put in the first chapter of Molly Joe's. When I, what I've done in my ghost story Molly Joe's, which is about two bus drivers, one called Molly and one called Joe, and they can both see ghosts, so they form a paranormal agency, and they call it Molly Joe's. So that's the name of the story and the name of the two main characters, and everything that they go through is based on um, things that I've heard, stories that I've been told. And one of them is in the first chapter, the very first chapter, and Joe is playing with his toy soldiers in the living room, and he looks up and he sees a soldier. He sees a soldier standing there, and he speaks to him, "Hello," and the soldier says, "Oh, hello," um, and asks him some questions. The soldier asked him some questions, and then says, "Is your mum there?" And so the little boy goes to get his mum, and when he comes back, the soldier is gone. But then a couple of months later, his mum is showing him pictures of old family, and she shows him a picture of an uncle who's dressed as this. He's the soldier. He's dressed in his military uniform in the picture, and the kid says, "That's him. That's the guy who was in the living room asking for you, a couple of months ago." And she says, "Oh, that's your uncle, blah blah, and he died in the Second World War, or he died in the First World War." It's a very old story, and that was a story that my uncle told me. And like I say, he's the very feasible guy. He's the one who, you know, swears he's seen a ghost to this day. When he was a little boy, he saw the ghost of a soldier. And so I used that in Molly Jaws. I used that exact story, that he sees the soldier. But in my story, the soldier is in pain, and it's when you interact with the ghost, when you actually turn around and say something to it, that's when the ghost starts to become real, because that's when it feeds off your sort of attention. You know what I mean? when you turn around and say, okay, now I can see it. If you see a ghost and you don't interact with it in any way, if you don't engage with it, then it's like a picture in a book, you know. But if you interfere with it, that's when that's when it turns and sort of, it realizes somebody can see it. It realizes that it hasn't quite passed over, and then it sort of feeds on that. So that's the whole idea of Molly Joe's. That was just the first chapter. That was the first chapter where that was Joe's experience with his uncle, the ghost of his uncle. But then in the second chapter, which I've still got to write, I've only done the first chapter. Molly herself, she's driving. She becomes a bus driver. She's spent her whole life working in a supermarket or something like that, and then she's decided, right, I want to be a bus driver. Okay. So she said to her husband, okay, I'm going to be a bus driver. I'm going to follow my dreams now. Her kids have left home. The husband's retired. And she says, right, I've got a few years left. I've always wanted to be a bus driver. She's never realized that she's able to see spirits. But then when she goes in, what used to happen in the town where I lived, there used to be the last bus. Okay. And none of the bus drivers wanted to drive the last bus because when they drove past the graveyard, they used to drive the bus back to the depot. Okay, so there were no passengers allowed on. Okay, so it was just the bus driver, and they would drive the bus back. I think it was through Padiham or through somewhere like this. A lot of people maybe will recognise the story, when they used to go past the graveyard, the bus would go freezing cold, and there would be, if you looked in the mirror, there would be a passenger on the bus as they went past the graveyard. Okay. And the bus drivers hated it. Nobody wanted to do that last ride back to the depot because they called it like the haunted, the haunted trip or something like that, right? And they would drive along, and when they got to the graveyard, all the bus drivers would like close their eyes because they knew if they looked in the mirror, they would see a passenger in the bus, and they knew there were no passengers on because it was the last bus back to the depot. So yeah, I'm going to put that in the second. That's going to be Molly's introduction to ghosts. So I'm going to put that in the thing as well.
And ladies and gentlemen, this is what we're saying for those of you who like to write this kind of stuff, supernatural. Just take snippets of those experiences and expand on them, because I know I have a few that I plan to write on or have maybe written on, I'm sure too. I try to keep some kind of journal or something so that I could write those things down. Otherwise, they get lost in the sauce, and it's goodbye, Molly Joe. Not talking about your character. I'm just saying in a reference, but it's just gone. But I'm just saying that anything in life when it comes to fiction, if this is your thing with ghosts and goblins and all those things, you could take any experience you've had and make that into a full-blown story, you know what I mean? I mean, just impossible, and there's so many people, that are like Molly, they don't realize they have the gift. In fact, now that you brought it up, see how I remember things as I go. I swear I'm so off key today, I apologize. That's what happens when you don't sleep too good, sorry. But I was thinking of a character in my novel that I'm writing, Blood here, Jane Ellison? Jenna Ellison. So Jenna does not realize that she's a medium.
Yeah.
She always had a sense of things, and in fact, when she was a little girl, after her mother comes to her, her mother's already deceased by the time my story starts, but her mother comes to her and tells her about her gift. But when she remembers when she was a little girl, that she used to see people coming to her asking for her for guidance, you know what I mean, to cross over.
Yep.
But mediums can be used for that. And they wanted to use her for that, but she didn't know, and she just blocked it off. She wasn't ready, we'll say.
Mm-hmm.
And her mother did not want her to nurture that gift because her father, Jenna's father, is an evil man. He's also deceased. and he had the gift, but he would use it for evil ways, like to manipulate things and cause trouble for other people. So she didn't want her daughter to nurture the gift and experience any negativity. So she never told her about it. But Jenna
Mhm.
also is helping in my novel. She is a member of a group of people called the Lantern Society, I believe I have them is called. And
Okay.
and she is this group. They help the vampire slayers. They prevent them. Not everyone wants to be a vampire slayer. They're born into it, kind of thing, and some of them really don't wanna do the fight and fight
Mhm.
the bloodsuckers in the story, so that's where she comes in and her organization. She helps those people, keeps them safe, and keeps them, nurtured so they don't get hurt. The main character in my book is a vampire slayer, but he never knew it because his mother brought him to my main character, to my supporting character, Jenna, because he wanted her, to know, or she wanted her son to be protected from that. Now he has to be involved as a slayer because his help was needed. But in the background of all this, Jenna doesn't realize her spiritual gift, and that's gonna
Okay.
it's gonna pay her down the road in the story. Because I'm
Mhm.
thinking maybe with that, she's going to maybe help cross over some people that have been killed by the bloodsuckers so they don't turn into a ghoul, at the end of the night. It's just a spin-off, I was thinking. And when you were talking about mediums or people that could see ghosts, and communicate with those, you know, I was thinking of Jenna because she
Mhm.
definitely has that gift in my story. I always found people that have that gift and are not super freaked out about it is kind of fascinating too, because I know as we discussed a few moments ago, I couldn't, do any of that. You know what I mean? I couldn't have that as a gift of mine. I wouldn't want to own that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Wouldn't want to own anything that, is dangerous. I don't know. I think that's dangerous because you're dealing with the unknown. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, no, I'm completely with you there. I like writing horror. I like thinking about it and planning it out, but I wouldn't like to be, as somebody who is what's the word, hassled by spirits or anything like that. I don't want to be in that deep. You know what I mean? And I think as well, um, like you said about your story in Molly Jaws as well. When I come to Molly, I think she's because she's been able to see spirits her entire life, but she hasn't realised it. So then she's going to start realising that some of the people that she thought were alive, who have been a big part of her life, actually aren't. You know what I mean? That's going to be sort of later on in the book where maybe even family members she finds out like okay, you know, I don't want to spoil it, but something like that. And I'm also going to deal with fake mediums and fake people who can't see ghosts, and
Oh,
things like that.
fake
I
one.
mean,
Fake one?
yeah, the start of the book was sort of to introduce the two characters and their the way that they can see ghosts and see spirits. But
Mhm.
then I'm going to have them later form an agency, a paranormal agency. They realize it that they can see spirits. They form a paranormal agency, and then they start getting called out to real hauntings, real experiences, things like that. So yeah, they got their transition from kind of not thinking about it to being in it all the time. Like we've talked about that we don't want to do.
Yes. No, and it sounds like an interesting book. That's one you're working on now, eh? That's
One of the
beautiful.
ones, yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
like to have a few going, and then
yeah.
like if one of them speaks to me, I'll write a chapter, and then I can leave the others for a while and have a think about them. I like to let the books kind of stew, so that I think it's like we talked about last week. If you get an idea um, through talking to people, you know what I mean. Sometimes, oh wow, that's fantastic! I never thought about that. I'm gonna put that in. I think that's how,
Well,
yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I have a few of those too. Well, the novel, The Blood Hairs, and then this one I'm doing for the 90-day challenge. It's sort of I don't know. I wouldn't say it's horror. I guess it's kind of sci-fi in a sense because it deals with the fact. The premise of the book is a young woman whose fiance was he dies in a fatal accident. She thinks it was an
Okay.
accident. She thinks that the brakes on his car it was her fault because he'd been having problems with the car and it keeps breaking down. He almost was in a few accidents, so she feels this guilt, from his death that she really should have taken the time to get the car inspected again because he went there once.
Okay.
So it develops more into that no, it wasn't an accident. He was murdered by his employers
Wow.
because he worked for a company. He works for a company, or he worked for a company, I should say, that what's the word I want to think? They're like a techie company, and he helped them make an AI product with a dating app uh where people can request the perfect soulmate, but it's an
Okay.
AI created robot.
Okay.
But what they want to use the app for, the owners, is to control people's lives and destroy them. And, I haven't gotten into all that part yet, but I do know that she figures out that he was murdered at some point, and that's why. And he was fixing to go to the police because he figured out that the AI killed someone in the book. And
Okay.
I think in my notes I have that it was my main character's one of her friends. So the whole story goes on to that she figures this out. So they make her, after being lonely and depressed, and she kind of is naive and vulnerable and everything because she wants happiness again. She lets him talk her into trying out the app, and she gets this AI created robot as a partner, boyfriend, and it turns out to be a programmable AI robot that has one mission, and that's to eradicate her, get
Okay.
her,
Good.
to solve, you know, the to deal to end any kind of any kind of whiplash from the employers. They want to make sure because she probably would or will go to the police when she figures all it out. So they want to make sure that that communication stops right there. They've gotten away with it so far. So that's it's like a sci-fi kind of thingy. You know what I mean? That's why I say.
It sounds like a 21st century Terminator. You know,
I
they're sending
know.
an
Does it
AI. An
sound
AI.
cliche?
It's very good.
Does it sound cliche? You think?
No, 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 no.
I
Sounds good.
find
Stick to the classic ideas, and you can't go far wrong. You know.
sometimes I don't share my ideas of what I'm working on because then I feel like I stop them or they're not good enough or oh it's been done before and then I trash
No,
them.
it's a
And I
good
think
idea. It's a good one. I like it. Yeah. No,
it's a
no.
90-day challenge. I'm only into the we started
I
it.
would have the new AI boyfriend look like the real boyfriend as well. I would have it so that
Oh yeah.
they've made the new boyfriend look very similar to the
Yeah.
to the
Yeah. Yeah.
old boyfriend. Like not quite exactly the same, but like the sort of
And and,
the
and
plastic version.
Yes, and here's the thing too. We talked about last week how we use AI for our resources to help us with our writing, and this is a case.
Yep.
And hello, Daniel. Daniel is a very good friend and
Hi,
a
Daniel.
member of the vault here. He's a good guy. He always gives great advice. Welcome, welcome, friend. This is our first weekly supernatural podcast, Daniel. Um, but when we were talking about like how we could use AI to help us, I used AI like this I think I told you the 90-day challenge I do through this other it's like you could put your stories in there and they check it and all. I have to still learn the ins and outs. It's kind of advanced, but it just evaluates your fiction and make sure the pacing's right, the characters are right. But they have all these different challenges for different things and
Okay.
contests. They're very more advanced than they were a few years ago, but they're called autocrit. I think I told you about it last week maybe or when we spoke last. But that's why I do the 90 challenge because I have a tendency to start something and never finish it. So I thought, let me do this 90-day challenge. I'm not where I want to be for July because each month is a different phase. June was supposed to be the brainstorming phase, and like the last week was supposed to be um like outlining and everything.
Okay.
And of course, I'm not past that phase. This month is supposed to be the writing phase. So I'm still in the brainstorming and outlining phase. But the coach that is running the program, she said, "Bill, don't be discouraged," because I was thinking of throwing in the towel and just put that on the back burner. But I'm trying to be consistent because that's what I say to everybody here at the Vault. See, friends, I suffer with that big time. That's why I created the Vault to help me and to help others, as we go along this creation journey. That at the end of the day, it's important to just stay consistent. You know what I mean? And that's how I'm
Do you know
trying.
what I always say? Do you know what I always say, Bill? I always say there's a million things that stop you from finishing a book. Don't let one of them be you. Don't let one of them be you. There's a million other things that stop you from finishing a book. There's a lot of things that can get in the way. There's a lot of things that can come along, everything else like that. But don't let it be you. You know what I mean? Like just get in there and do the work. You know what I mean? Show up. Whether you've set yourself a target of a chapter a week or even 2 chapters a week, or I think if you're doing a 90-day challenge, what is that? You have to write a novel in 90 days.
Well, at the outline and brainstorming is first. This month is supposed to be the writing, and it's a novella. It's not even a novel.
Okay.
There's like 20,000 words, and from what I understand, that's like a novella. Um, and then August will be proofreading. It's just a personal challenge to me to see what I can do. That's why I'm trying to maintain and can stick with it because I do want to see it through. It's just I get discouraged if I'm not where everybody else is, but there were a few people that are in our session that aren't. They said, "Bill, just don't worry about it. Just keep moving like what you're saying. Just keep it trucking.
Yep. Yep.
Keep it trucking." Because I tend to do this a lot with my writing. I start something and then it's up, and then don't come back to it, and that's not good. So I'm just gonna do my thing. You know what I mean? Like you said, because you're doing it and you do it well.
I think if you have the ending in especially in place, then the rest of it kind of falls in place. I'll give you an example. I wrote this book. This is my first children's book, The Shark in the
Oh yeah.
Park. And
Mhm.
when before I started writing it, before I worked on it seriously, I made sure I knew what the ending was. I made sure I knew what was going to happen at the end. I went through all kind of different iterations. I said, right, okay, let's go from the worst thing that can happen is the shark eats the little boy. So that's the kind of chomp ending, and then finished. I say, okay, so obviously I can't use that. It's a kid's story, so I've got to think of something else. So then finally I thought of something else, and I was like, okay, that's it, perfect. I've got the ending. You know what I mean? I don't need to think about that anymore. The rest of it is the journey to get to that point. You know what I mean? Without sort of,
Yeah, I agree with.
and then you don't need. And I think if you have a rough idea how your book is going to end, like I always knew how Crybaby was going to end. I always knew, that I kind of had the idea that I would set it up the third act like Jaws with the three characters going after Crybaby. But then I always had that idea, right? Okay, I'm going to end it like this. I don't know if you finished it, but it leaves it open for a Crybaby 2. You know what I mean? I don't know if you've
Oh
got that
no,
far yet.
close to it. I'm 35 pages away.
Okay, so it's not a big spoiler, but I did think like, okay, let's see how we do with this. You know what I mean? Let's end it properly. You know,
I think I asked you that, Mr. Watson. Is there going to
okay.
be a crybaby too? But you left it to that possibility.
You'll see, you'll see, you'll see.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. I find these last few pages, the climax, with them in the jungle trying to find crybaby. They're figuring out how evil uh things are. I mean, how evil Rahul is. Rahul, uh, the stuff he's hiding, like those. It's really building up, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, and it's very interesting how
Yeah.
you that all together. And did you say you do an outline or you don't do an outline, or you do a little bit of both?
It kind of depends. Like I do try to give things three acts, and I try to do a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yes.
And I try to figure out how it's going to end so that I know the ending. I don't want to get to the end and then be trying to pull stuff together. You know what I mean? I'd like to make sure I know how it's going to end. I like to know how it's going to end when I start it. Like if I start a book, then the next thing I think of is, right, how am I going to end this? I don't then think, okay, let's plan out the next 10 chapters and things like that. I'll think, right, next I need to figure out how it's going to end. Once I've got a good ending, then I'm going to then everything else is a lot easier. You know what I mean? It's almost
Mhm.
like filling in the blocks. You know what I mean? If you think classic first act, let's set everything up. I mean, I did this with a book. I have a book here. Another book. One of the books I've done is The Hairy Fairy. Okay, this is my book, The Hairy Fairy, and
Mhm.
I actually plan that out with post-it notes, and I do, okay, it's going to be 20 pages. The first 5 pages, I'm going to introduce the character. The next 10 pages, I'm going to create all kinds of chaos. And I'm going to turn it up to 11. I'm going to keep building on the chaos, building on the chaos, building
And
on
you
the
put
chaos.
that on little post-it notes?
Yeah. And then
Wow.
in the last 5 pages, I'm going to reset it. There's going to be a reset and everything's going to go back to normal. And that's the kind of thing. And I literally did that. I mean, I have kind of,
It's a big book. Is that a children's book too?
yeah,
I love it. I love the cover too.
I have
Wow.
scouts. I have scouts getting thrown about. I have vegetables attacking everybody.
Oh, that see that one with the teeth that you just
I get the
showed?
arms. I get the army and the navy. I get the army
See
and the
that one
navy involved.
you see the one with the teeth in there? That red one?
Yeah.
That was my roommate. That was that was her on a bad day. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
Gerace. That's a Gerace. I
Yeah. So
swear,
that's
I
yeah.
wrote
He,
about
he,
her too
he
because
wakes up. He wakes up one morning and he finds a hairy fairy on his head, and he's stuck with him.
wow.
He's stuck with him for the day until the hairy fairy can recharge his wand. So
Yeah.
yeah, and that was one of a fairy tale with a
Real
difference,
huh?
a fairy tale with attitude, a fairy tale with a top knot and a beard. So there he is. There's the hairy fairy.
That's a beautiful book. Did you
Yeah,
sell that on Amazon?
yeah. All of my children's books are available on Amazon. Yep.
Did
I've
you?
got 10. I
Because
have quite a few.
I have always wanted to. I had a few children book ideas years ago that I wanted to try. One was because when I was a kid, I loved squirrels for some reason. Because it was a foresty area where I lived, and there was blue jays and um, cardinals. It was a lot of trees and all. So all that stuff was there, and then squirrels were all over the place. And there was this lady that I became friends with. She was an older lady when I was a kid, and she would feed the squirrels, and she would call them Chi Chi, and they would come right up to her hand and eat out of her hand. She had them so well trained, which is amazing because squirrels are like wild. You know what I mean? But
Yep.
she had them trained to do all this, and I came up with this unique. Well, I thought it was unique. Idea for a children's story, but I ain't good with the drawing and all. But like, what if this family of squirrels had their own community up in the trees and they, have their own little vehicles and they go back and forth and use phones and I don't but see, that's the thing with picture books. You gotta well, I guess you hire someone to draw the pictures, but um like how do you get the wording? Like, how do you do the manuscript? You know what I'm saying? Like there's special formatting, I'm sure, for that.
I use seven syllable rhyming couplets. That's my little my own style. So, for instance, in The Shark in the Park, uh, the air is misty, bright and cool. The morning Michael walks to school. So seven syllables, two sentences, rhyming couplet. At the boundary of the park, he waits. Nervously, he hesitates. The day
Okay.
warms up, the sun shines down, and Mike walks on into town. So I always follow that. I always follow my own little style, which is rhyming couplets. For the hairy fairy, I did it a bit differently, where I tried to get in the most complicated words I could. So I've actually managed to rhyme cockamamie general. I've got cockamamie general in there, and I actually managed to rhyme it. Let me see if I can find it. He says, "Can't you do anything, or this will be a funeral? Make another portal, you cockamamie general." So I managed to get that in there.
That's funny.
And I tried to do that. I tried to get complicated words in there to introduce kids to new words or words that they have to go and look up. Or because let's say the education level even of adults these days is so low that parents have to
Tell
go
me
and look
about
it up. You know what I mean?
I rec my like any of this stuff we put online, like for Substack, or I don't know if you've done anything with Medium or you've heard of Medium, I'm sure. Um, but the recommendation is to write everything on a sixth grade reading level
Yeah.
because that's, I don't know, so people can understand, which I do. Um, I think people are higher than that, I'm sure. It's just what the experts recommend when you're conveying your message. But did want to ask you this, your opinion of going to some of these places, like here at the Vault. Me and the Gremlins have spoke about it as a committee over here. Uh, about maybe exploring some of these little haunted attractions that are supposedly spiritual, supernatural activity. The one that's really sticking out to me, but I definitely got to get someone to go with me, is that park I told you about, Jefferson Park, because you
Yeah.
got to get there at night. All the activity documented seems to happen between 11:30 and 12 midnight, because that's when the girl was murdered. So I guess that's when her spirit is, you know, keeps coming back. What do you think about exploring those kind of ideas and doing,
The
uh,
problem is, okay, there's all these TV programs in there, ghost hunters or
yeah,
ghost, and they all go to these places, and nobody
yeah,
ever
it's
sees
probably
anything, do
something
they?
additional.
Nobody ever
Yeah,
captures anything credible, really. They always
yeah,
go,
that's true.
there's a ball, there's a ball of light, and it's like a bit of dust on the lens or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
They're always saying, "Oh, I can see an aura" or something like that. So
yeah,
I
yeah,
think ghosts tend to hide while the camera's there, and then when you turn the camera away, they go. I don't
yeah,
know.
that's true, that's
Nobody
true.
ever sees them in thousands and thousands of hours of footage of all these ghost hunter programs or anything like that. So I think the most you're ever going to get is a feeling. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
remember when I lived in Scotland when I did my degree, we used to go. We went to Loch Ness, and near Loch
Oh, where
Ness
the
is a
monster is?
battlefield called Culloden. Okay, and it's where there was a big massacre of the Scottish by the English, and we went there and we waited until the thing closed. We waited until the tourist thing closed, and then we just went in there for free. And it went dark, you know. And when it goes dark in Scotland, it goes pitch black. Okay, so we were
Wow.
walking around the battlefield in pitch black darkness, and then you can really feel sort of an atmosphere and everything else. But again, never actually saw anything, but we
Yeah.
felt it. You know what I mean? I think
Yeah.
the closest I would ever get if I went to a scary sort of haunted place would be a feeling. You know what I mean? I don't think I'd ever actually see anything. You know, that's
Yeah.
the thing. I had an
Yeah.
ex-girlfriend, and she used to say, "Oh, I've seen like 5 ghosts," and things like that. She'd say, "I've seen, I was in a house once, and she was babysitting, and a ghost came through the wall, walked right through the bedroom she was in, and walked through the next wall.
Oh,
And the
wow.
woman was picking up pins. The ghost was picking up pins off the floor as she went through, and then she told people about it, and they said, "Yeah, yeah, she's famous. She goes through the house every
I
night picking up pins. Don't know why, but so that
I
she got that kind of what's the word, validation. She wasn't the only one who'd seen it, and the strange behaviour of the ghost. But I never saw anything, nothing.
I think it goes according to, like, what we said at the beginning of the show today. It goes according to what your mental capacity, like, if what you can process, if you're open to that. You know what I mean? I think there are some people that are open to seeing those things. Do you know what I mean? I think, because
Yeah,
if we I
she
know
seemed to
find
have that gift, and I didn't.
yeah, and I think we should be grateful for that, you know?
Yeah,
We'll we'll let them do the real experience while we write the stuff, you know what I mean?
yeah,
That's my opinion, but, no, I really think, that these experiences are, they're real. There's enough documented proof for most of them. We will, of course, continue to report these at the Vault, so that people can, read about them. And of course, we'll discuss them here at the weekly edition of Supernatural Podcast Sunday here. Did want to ask the audience, for ne- uh, while we have a few minutes left here, uh, what content or what kind of discussions would you like me and Mr. Mark here to talk at for next Sunday's podcast? Any suggestions? Any particular haunted stories or writing technique that writers use, supernatural writers or horror writers or any kind of
or a
writer?
film, a film we could watch
A
and then
film. Thank
discuss.
you.
We talked about that with me and Bill, that we could watch the latest horror film and then give you like a review of it, or an idea, or what we think about it, whether it scared us, whether we got some inspiration from it or anything like that, or whether we found it awful. And before
Yeah,
before we
like a
did the
B movie.
podcast, I was watching the latest horror film, which is called Bring Her Back. Bring Her Back. I just started that. I'm 26 minutes in. So if you wanted us to talk about a film, that would be fine.
Oh yeah, let us know, friends, because when I come out with the post, if you don't tell us here, when I come out with the post, which will probably be tomorrow with our recap of the video here, just put it in the comments. Let us know what you want us to watch. If it's a movie, or a particular scary place, something along them lines, or any kind of general type of questions about writing or supernatural. Just something. Let us know in the comments what you really want us to talk about. That way, you're included in this too. And then we'll have, further things to discuss, for future projects, which I think is really great too. What else was I going to say today? I, um, I feel we've covered a lot of ground. We talked about, really good stuff. And I was thinking of a movie too that I saw a few years ago with Carlos in the movie theater. It was really scary, actually. I don't know. Maybe you've seen it or heard of it. And I feel that the characters in that, I wouldn't say were British, so maybe you might have heard of the movie. I could be wrong, but it's about a girl. It's about a movie about a hand, and whenever someone takes hold of the hand, it makes you see something, and you
Yeah,
know the
yeah,
movie I'm
yeah,
talking
yeah,
about. What's it
yeah.
called?
I can't remember. Give me 1 second.
Yeah,
But
me
I
and
know which
Carlos
one you mean. Yeah,
were talking about
movie
that movie.
about a hand. All right.
Yeah, and it had a black girl in there, I believe. I
Yeah, Talk to Me. It was called Talk to Me.
see. So Mark, uh, we could do a brief recap of that before we go. What did you think of that movie? I thought it was very, very scary myself.
Yeah, I thought it was excellent. Yeah, very good one. Yeah, I would
Friends?
say one of the good films that I saw recently that is quite recent. It's not within the last couple of years, but was a very good horror film, very original. Was It Follows? I don't know if you've seen that one. It Follows. That was a very good one. And you have to have sex with somebody to pass it on. Otherwise, it just keeps coming after you.
Oh my
Keeps coming
god.
after you. It keeps coming after you. And then the only way to get rid of it is to have sex with somebody else. That's a brilliant film. Very, very well done.
Ooh.
Very
Is it
original.
deep? Is
And
it a deep?
if you've got Prime or anything like that, Amazon Prime TV or stuff like that, you can rent it. It's yeah. Hang on, I'll write it in. I'll write it in the message. It Follows, and it's very low budget, and it was, I think, a directorial debut, and excellent film. Very, very well done. Very
I might watch it this next week. Uh
yeah.
and let me copy and paste that because what I'll do, I might check it out and we could talk about that next week. It Followed. And tell me about the It Follows. Because if I watch it, you'll know already. Maybe we both could watch it, or you already watched it.
Yeah, no,
Um,
I'll watch it again. I'll watch it again, then we can chat about it. And I watched the one about the
I
hand.
got one here, but
I watched Talk to Me again.
yeah, I'll take some notes too because I always like to see a good movie, especially when it's well done. With the It Follows, is it a ghost that chases after these people or a demon?
I think it's like a demon, and what happens is if you it spreads. Obviously, like the subtext is probably sexually transmitted disease. But what happens is if you sleep with someone, then you pass it on, and you see it in the distance, and it just keeps coming for you. It just keeps coming for you as a person, or it keeps becomes different people as well. But you can just see it all the time coming for you, and you have to keep going. You have to keep. You have
Wow.
to get away from it. And at the beginning, I won't spoil it, but it goes from a boy to a girl, and then the film follows her as she tries to get rid of it. And that's
Jesus.
it. That's how it is. It's a brilliant film. It has some really good, like, scary moments. You know what I mean? Where
Yeah, and
you
you
know,
said it's title on Prime Video?
I think so. If you've got pay-per-view or anything like that, yes, it's on one of those. It's on all of those because it's quite old. Let me just check for you.
No,
It
I'm not
follows.
looking.
It follows 2014, and I think it was the debut of Micah Monroe, who's the girl with the incredible eyes. She
Oh,
was in Independence Day 2 and a couple of other films, and she's very good in that. Yeah, It Follows.
all right. I'll have to check it out for sure. I'm gonna do some searching and watch that for sure. Um, yeah, friends. We're almost near the end of our show here. Does anyone have any questions or suggestions for content that you would like me or Mr. Mark to cover? Maybe our different writing styles or any spooky movies or anything like that, supernatural scary places, let us know. You know, love to talk more about that today. I mean, in the future. Today we talked a lot for sure um, about future projects and things of that nature. But I think what we're going to do, we're probably going to wrap it up. This was our, first official week of Vault of the Supernatural Sunday podcast. We will be here every Sunday from 1 to 2:30 p.m. Arizona time. It sounds like what me and Mr. Mark are going to do is watch It Follows, this movie. We're going to take some notes on it and give an honest review. Uh, It sounds like a pretty cool movie, and me and Mr. Mark will discuss it, and then we could share that information with you all. Um, but I thank you for coming to the weekly talk show. We will be here again next Sunday, same bat channel, same bat time, as they say, in Batman time or supernatural time. And I want to thank you guys for coming and thank you for
Very much.
allowing us to communicate our views. And we look forward to seeing you guys next week. All right, guys. Bye bye now. Okay.
See you later.
See you later.